everyone. So this is a bonus extra video that I meant to make you. That is following on the heels of some things that we were studying last month. So in December, we were doing a month on developing secure attachment. And we went through the acronym that Jessica Fern lays out in her book, Polysecure, HEARTS. And one of the acronyms, the T, in terms of developing secure attachment, is about turning toward each other after conflict. And I've spoken to this before, but I think a long time ago or in a different form. So I wanted to make a new video about it for you today, because a lot of people wonder, well, how do I turn toward my partner after conflict when I'm all boiling inside and angry and feeling so much intensity? And other people think, well, I am turning toward my partner after conflict. They're just not agreeing with me, because a lot of the time, the default way that we end up turning toward our partner is by arguing facts. Arguing, but I didn't mean it, or that wasn't my intent, or but this happened, right? And so neither of those ways is effective. Like turning toward your partner when you're still boiling and all these emotions and all this intensity is like so tight inside, or arguing the facts. As I quote him pretty often because I love him, Terry Real, the widely renowned couples therapist who works, who specializes in working with men and especially people on the narcissism spectrum. And he says that logic and being right has no place in intimate relating. And so that's something that can be really challenging to learn, because we want to like get it right and get the facts right and be right. And I come from this background myself, so I know how hard this is. But the question is, what do you do instead? And the cool thing is that what you do instead comes from science. It comes from polyvagal theory. It comes from understanding our nervous system. So it's not like a question of why this works or whether or not you should do it. You should do it. And we know that it actually will help. So I'm going to walk you through some steps of what to do instead of arguing the facts or bringing your emotionally distraught self to repair after conflict. All right, so normally what happens, what is a rupture in a relation? What is a conflict? So we know there's been a connection rupture, like imagining there's like a tube between the two of you, and either it's been broken or something is blocking it when one or both of you go into red alert in your nervous system. So maybe you go into fight, flight, freeze, or even fawn, but more commonly fight, flight, or freeze. And you might notice the other person's face has gone flat, their voice has no more vocal prosody, like their tone of voice is flat, and they're just kind of, they're not in their friendly connect, like you can see me now, the tone of my voice is changing as I talk, and my face is having like a friendly expression, and I'm making eye contact, and I'm like moving toward you, right? This is a sign that my nervous system is not overactivated into a fight, flight, or freeze response. So you might notice that the first thing you notice is the nervous system's gone awry. And what I want to say is the most important thing, if you don't remember anything else, is that you need to reestablish physiological safety. Like, you've got to work on the body and nervous system level first. If you try to argue facts or convince someone that they should just see it your way, or convince someone that wasn't your intent, however you hurt them, it's not going to work at all. Because their nervous system is shut down, closed, and is perceiving you as a threat. So if you ever want to be heard and understood, we have to come back into the green zone of the nervous system, which is the rest and relax, communicate, connect zone. So that is the first and most important thing to do when you have a major rupture. And I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. Now, I used to teach an entire 18-week course called Emotional Mastery on exactly how to do this. I'm not offering it anymore at the moment, but I just say that in order to tell you that this isn't like a one and done thing that you just learn. Like, I still find it challenging. This is a practice that you will need to practice a lot until it becomes a habit. Because if you're triggered in the course of a rupture or a conflict, then the blood flow decreases to your frontal lobe, the part of your brain that allows you to make wise, mature decisions. And it's hard to think straight. So you need to practice emotional regulation techniques so that they are like second nature, they're like habit, they're so deeply ingrained in your being that even though you're seeing red and livid and you're about to shred your partner with a bunch of angry words, part of you can be like, wait, don't do that. And that is how it has worked that way for me, that even when I'm so upset and feeling like this is so unfair and you don't understand me and that's not true, or I'm like really worried that I'm being misunderstood and I've made some horrible mistake and the bottom's just dropped out of my world and I'm full of fear, or when I'm just like feeling super judgmental and full of complaint, there's a little voice in me, there's a little part of me, I automatically start breathing deeply, I automatically start noticing how tight my body is, and there's a little voice that says, wait, don't talk about this now. And it has saved my ass. It is one of the things I am most proud of, and I hope that you can develop this too. So even if you can't take my 18-week program anymore, you can still practice this in my men's and women's sex and relationship masterminds that I'm running this year. They'll be 6 months each, and we'll have an in-person component. Anyway, so what do you do? How to establish physiological safety. So basically you need to activate the ventral vagus nerve. You need to calm the fuck down in layman's terms. And the way to do that is take a break. And this is what I most recommend, is to tell your partner, I am full of anger right now, or I'm full of complaint and I need some space, and then we can come back and talk about this. Go for a walk in nature. It's very regulating. Take a nap, take a shower, go for a run, go out and work out, do whatever it is, go do some breath work, take an ice bath, do what it is you need to do to get out of that activated state. And it can be very challenging. Like if you're running the story over and over in your brain, so you have got to make yourself stop running the story. And sometimes it's overwhelming, in which case I recommend phone a friend, your lifeline. So call a friend and ask them if you have permission to vent, right? Where you can just get it all out, because sometimes, at least for me, I need to just vent things in a really dirty, nasty way that's not politically correct and doesn't look pretty. Or maybe journal them out. But whatever it is, be with yourself, tell yourself, hey, I love you, it's okay, we're gonna figure this out, and calm the fuck down. So you have to reestablish physiological safety. So when you come back, you want to be really mindful of your nonverbal safety cues that you're giving your partner. Like I was talking about before, don't have flat facial affect and say, hey, can we talk about this? That's really fucking scary. You want to be able to, move, look friendly, make eye contact, be able to change the tone of your voice in a friendly way. Notice how your body's moving. Like, are you open when you're facing your partner, or are you like this? Yo, let's talk. Okay. So think of the way you might speak to a frightened child. I mean, don't be condescending, but or to like a frightened animal, right? You're doing your best to be friendly, to be calm, to present a safe presence for them. So then what do you do next? Once you've reestablished physiological safety for them, right, that you are holding a space of safety physiologically at least in your nervous system, and you're helping them to come back into that regulated nervous system as well by holding that space. Then you want to validate what they're feeling. So this is usually skipped over as well. It's like, oh, you shouldn't be sad, or don't think that way. That's not, in some way invalidating what they're feeling, which is understandable because usually we're afraid. Like all of my clients have told me they're afraid of their partner's anger. And we've been raised to, not know how to handle deep emotions in someone else. So if someone is sad or angry, we want that to go away as soon as possible. And we try to do that by convincing them not to feel that way, or that they shouldn't feel that way, or that they're wrong for feeling that. So notice this in yourself if you have this habit, and stop it. Again, you can practice this in my masterminds or at my couples workshop coming up in February. And so just say, it makes sense that you would feel that way. If it actually makes sense to you, don't lie. If it doesn't make sense, ask them some questions until you can understand their point of view. Now, again, this doesn't work if your partner is abusing you, is really, really activated, and is just hurling lots of insults or accusations at you. You do not have to stand for that. You can say, okay, we're going to do this later, right? But if they're in a place where they can explain to you while taking responsibility for themselves, then you can get curious and ask, tell me more about what's going on, until you finally understand and can validate what they're feeling. Even if it's not something you would do, if you're like, well, that wouldn't make me sad, but you can see from their point of view, oh, I can see why in their world that would make them really sad. Okay. So, and I want to say here that validation is not agreement. And I was raised this way, that you should never empathize or validate anyone else's point of view, because then that means you completely agree with what they're saying or how they're feeling, and then you're responsible to caretake them and to fix their situation. That's like the old school way of understanding. And so be mindful if you were raised in that. And validation is not agreement. It's just meaning, I can see why you might feel that way. And that right there is often received as love. So other than any other reason to do this work, remember that you actually love the person in front of you, and you want them to feel that you love them, probably. So one of the most amazing ways you can do that is to say, it makes sense to me that you would feel that way. Just being seen and validated is what lands in our nervous systems as love. Okay. So then you can establish what one of my teachers calls emotional safety. Notice there's no problem solving. There's no discussion of the facts, right? We've gone from physiological safety, which is just basic body nervous system regulation and validation, and then establishing emotional safety so that they know, that usually already happens if you validate what they're feeling, but then another step can be giving them an effective apology. And I'll make another video on how to do that, because that's a whole art form in itself. But again, you're not trying to say, you were right, I was wrong, this is what happened, get the facts right. There's none of that. The whole talking about the facts comes last in repairing ruptures, right? First, there's physiological holding and safety, then there's emotional holding, and then finally we get to the cognitive level, the mental level, right? Facts and solutions. So here, what you want to do is understand each other's stories. So again, you're not trying to determine this was what happened. Remember, that has no place in intimate relationship, but it's more like, okay, according to you, what happened? I really want to know, what is your story and what are your facts? What's your mental level of what occurred? And then you use the communication tools that I've taught you so many times, which is repeat back what you heard them say, ask, did I get that right? Go back and forth until your partner says, okay, you got it, you understood me. And do that for both of you, back and forth with this openness and curiosity. Now you can see how this is totally not going to work at all if you have skipped the physiological safety step. So sometimes you have to wait a few days, a few weeks before you can get to this point. And I will say it's very hard. I know it's really hard for me too. You have that voice in your head going over and over, but it was like this, and if only he knew, and if only they understood, and just going over and over. Sorry, I have this throat stuff because I'm still recovering from COVID. But, so finally you get to this level and you understand each other's point of view and you're like, okay. And then if you want, you can try to come to a shared understanding. You can make amends. You can say, okay, well, what I want to do in the future is this. This is how I intend to change my behavior. And that's an element of an effective apology too, is saying, this is what I'm going to do to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. And you can ask each other, well, what do you need? What do you need from me now? What do you need from me in the future? And you can, if it's an alignment for you, don't just cave and do exactly what your partner needs, because don't go into fawn, but they'll tell you what they need and you can decide, can I meet this need? Can I meet a modified version of this need? Or what is the offer that I want to make to them around this? So this is how you can turn toward each other after conflict. And, I was in a relationship where my ex was really, really, really good at doing this, even when I was so angry. And I would have taken days to calm down or turn toward him or apologize or talk about it. He was so good at making the first move and coming back to me and giving me a hug or giving me love and saying, hey, let's talk about this. And it changed everything. I admired him so much for this. So I don't know why the fuck people call these soft skills, because these are hard. And they make all the difference in the world, from spending days in a rupture where you're feeling on edge and fried and it's hard to focus on work and you're feeling disconnected from your partner. That sucks. Nobody wants that, right? So having skills in this will drastically change your life and allow you to show up with love and be one of those beings that, radiates love, and everyone else kind of like, oh God, why? Can you just stop for a minute? How could you possibly do that all the time? So, right. But the first step is this physiological safety, and it does require a commitment to this path, because it's way more fun to just, or you think it's way more fun in the moment, to just let yourself be angry and be right and lay into someone. That's what we're modeled. That's what I was raised with. That's the way to go. Please don't do that. So it requires a commitment to this path and to doing something harder and that feels less easy or even less fun or less energetically alive than giving in to the anger or the tightness or whatever you're feeling. It requires not giving in to the impulse to blame the other person and make them responsible for how you're feeling. And because we haven't been modeled this very well or given spaces to practice it, unless you've been in something like T group or authentic relating forever, it's hard. It's hard to make this commitment because everything in us wants to win and wants to be right and wants to take out that charge because we feel so alive. So first, the commitment. And it's really helpful to be in communities with people who practice this way in order to help yourself with that. And the second thing it requires is that spark of awareness. Also what my classical Tantra teacher calls the ledge of freedom. The ledge of freedom between your impulse and your response. So if you have no ledge of freedom, you'll have an anger impulse and you'll just react. You'll just be very reactive and you'll just lash out. But if you have a big ledge of freedom, you'll feel that and then you'll say, oh, wait, what do I want to do with this anger? I actually love this person in front of me. How can I create physiological safety first? How can I regulate my nervous system first? And then we can repair this rupture. And you can develop that ledge of freedom, again, through being in community and practicing, but also meditation, regular meditation. I can't say enough about that. It can be very, very helpful. But many kinds of self-inquiry that I offer in my one-on-one coaching and my programs will help with it. So those are the two hardest things, is the commitment and that ledge of freedom. But if you have those, then the other stuff, way easier. All right, so this was how to turn toward each other after conflict from the Secure Attachment Month. And please let me know, those of you watching now or a later time, what are your aha moments from this video, what other questions you have, and have a beautiful week, and I will see you next time.